The biggest myth about paraphrasing is that it's just summing up the client's story. It isn't. Paraphrasing is one of the most misunderstood skills in counselling and one of the most powerful. Done well, it can move a client further in one sentence than a whole string of questions. So in the next few minutes, I'll show you what paraphrasing really is, why it's so much more than repeating the story back, and how to practice it so it actually lands. And everything we cover today, I've pulled into a free handout for you, the Reflecting and Paraphrasing 2-in-1 overview. It sets these two close skills side by side so you can see exactly when to use each. Just scan the QR code on screen or grab the link in the description. Right, let's start with what paraphrasing actually is. Here's a definition to anchor it. Paraphrasing is repeating back your understanding of the material the client has brought in your own words. A paraphrase reflects the essence of what has been said. Notice those two parts, your own words and the essence. And you're not recording the client word for word. You're distilling what they've brought down to what matters most and handing that back. We actually do this all the time. Think about sitting in a lecture, making notes. You don't write down every word the tutor says. You catch the important part in your own shorthand. That's a paraphrase. And in the counselling room, that same skill becomes something quietly profound. Now, if you saw the last video, you'll be asking, how is this different from reflection? You know, they're closely related active listening skills. And different counselling texts use the terms slightly differently. In this video, we'll use paraphrasing to mean restating the client's central content or meaning in the counsellor's own words. And we'll use reflection of feeling to mean responding to the emotional quality of what the client is communicating. The distinction is useful, but it isn't a rigid boundary. A skilled response may include content, emotion, and meaning together. That's why these two skills belong side by side and why they're paired in the handout. So why paraphrase at all? Depending on the timing and accuracy of your response, it can serve several purposes. First, it can help the client feel heard. They've dared to share something and you give a portion of it back. The part you sense is important. When that lands accurately, they think, finally, somebody is really listening. Second, it lets you check your own frame of reference. A paraphrase is your best guess at the essence, so you can offer it and ask gently, have I understood that correctly? If you're slightly off, the client corrects you and you both get closer. Third, it highlights what's important. By stating something back more concisely, you naturally bring the significant part into focus, which invites the client to go there. Fourth, it acts as an invitation to explore deeper. And fifth, a paraphrase can gently signal the end of one thread, a natural place to pause before moving on. Here's where paraphrasing keys into something bigger, empathy. Carl Rogers described empathy as perceiving another person's internal frame of reference accurately, including the emotional components and meanings that belong to it, as if we were that person, but without ever losing the as if quality. But here's the part people miss. In therapy, empathic understanding needs to be communicated, not merely privately experienced. Rogers' necessary and sufficient conditions formulation refers to the therapist communicating empathic understanding and the client perceiving that communication to at least a minimal degree. Think about watching a film. A character achieves something extraordinary and you're moved genuinely, maybe even to tears. You are deeply empathizing with that person. But they can't perceive it. Your understanding never reaches them. In counselling, empathic understanding is more useful when it's communicated in a way the client can recognise, respond to, and correct. Paraphrasing is one way of communicating that understanding and checking whether it fits the client's experience. This is exactly what the free handout unpacks, how paraphrasing and reflection work together to help a client feel truly heard. You'll find it in the Reflecting and Paraphrasing 2-in-1 overview. Scan the QR code on screen or use the link in the description. Now let me show you where paraphrasing gets really powerful. The textbook says paraphrasing is saying the client's material back in your own words. That sounds simple, and there's a temptation to just paraphrase the narrative, the story, but there's so much more to it. Let me give you a real example of the power in this. A client was describing how she'd constantly override her own wants to gain other people's approval, friends, family, at work. And as she spoke, one word came up for me: sacrifice. So I offered it. It sounds like you sacrifice your own wants and needs to meet what you think is expected of you. Have I understood that correctly? Now, sacrifice was my word, not hers. It was a tentative understanding offered for her to check, not a conclusion about her, and it seemed to fit. She said, "Yes, sacrifice really captures it." From that point on, that single word became a theme she returned to through the session. That's the power of a paraphrase that reaches for the essence, not just the story, while leaving the client free to confirm, refine, or reject it. So how do you find that essence? You listen to the whole communication, not only the words, but also tone, pace, pauses, and visible changes in how the client is presenting. But here's the crucial caution. These observations are clues, not proof. We need to stay tentative and avoid assuming that a particular posture or facial expression has one fixed meaning. So instead of deciding what a client feels, you offer it and check. You might say, "As you talk about this, I'm noticing how weighed down you seem. Does that fit for you?" The client remains the authority on their own experience. They may agree, disagree, or offer a different meaning altogether, and any of those moves you closer to understanding them. A well-timed paraphrase can also contribute to a moment of movement or a new awareness. That same client started off wondering whether other people even noticed what she gave up. Her focus was largely outside herself. Do they see it? Do they understand? In person-centered terms, an external locus of evaluation. Then came the paraphrase, and her attention appeared to shift from wondering whether other people recognised her sacrifices towards considering her own perception and her own possible choices. She said, in effect, "Having said that out loud, I can see this is my perception." That's a move towards an internal locus of evaluation. But a word of care here. We shouldn't imply that one response causes change by itself. Therapeutic change develops within the wider relationship, the client's own meaning making, and the work carried out over time. A good paraphrase is one contribution to that, not the engine of it. Now, a caution, because paraphrasing means catching the essence. It's not about parroting the story back word for word. If that's all it ever is, it starts to feel mechanical. And because you're using your words, you might get it slightly wrong, which is completely fine. So offer it tentatively and check, have I got that right? Let the client confirm it or correct it. Either way, they feel you're working hard to understand them, and that itself deepens the relationship. So how do you build this skill? First, practice active listening and paraphrasing in your everyday life, with friends, with family, in ordinary conversations. Second, get together with a peer and practice paraphrasing in a skills session. That's exactly what those sessions are for. So play around with it. And third, evaluate your practice. Where everyone has given informed consent and the recording can be stored securely, review your practice sessions, ideally with a peer or supervisor. If recording isn't appropriate, use contemporaneous notes or peer feedback instead. Then ask, was my paraphrase accurate? Did it hit the mark? And did it deepen the conversation? Did it help the client explore further? That's how paraphrasing goes, from a technique you know to a skill you own. So paraphrasing, it's giving back the essence in your own words. It's more than the story, offered tentatively and open to the client's correction. It's one of the ways we communicate empathic understanding and check that it fits. And at its best, it can contribute to a moment of movement. It only gets sharper the more you practice it. So try it in daily life, practice it with your peers, and record and evaluate as you go. If you take one thing away today, let it be this handout, the Reflecting and Paraphrasing 2-in-1. Overview, free, practical and yours. Scan the QR code on screen or tap the link in the description. And if you found this useful, take a look at our Counselling Skills playlist. There's a video on every core skill to help you build your practice one skill at a time. I'll see you in the next one.